Hey, it's Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and it's Wednesday. It's October 6th. This will be our chart lesson for the day. And I thought I'd show you the daily chart again. If you look back, I mean, we've really been in a downtrend for over 3 weeks now, almost going on a month. So we're working on a month, and you can see the bands have actually turned down. The EMA is pointing down. So even if this is only a temporary correction, we're still in a downtrend at this moment. So you can clearly see the blue channel is in play. Today, this is today's bar, another inside bar, although it closed near the very highs. So we just keep going up. We're down bar, up bar, down bar, up bar, down bar, and then back up. So we ended on a more positive slant twice in the last 2 days, although everything is we're still making inside bars. So we're just going sideways here. Not a lot of buying. Nobody's. Well, I shouldn't say not a lot of buying because it take a lot of buying to sell this off way down to here. You can see we opened right here, and this traded all the way down before coming back and then closing. We have, it's only 315, so we may. I guess this bar technically could still close outside the previous day's bar. That might be telling if we closed outside this range here. So my guess is we're going to continue to work over here. I still like this as the near-term target. If we don't make it and suddenly we start rallying, that means we're probably means the downtrend, the uptrend is not over with yet. So it's a little early to tell. There's a bearish slant on this market, and we're still in this downtrend. So that's the way you got to look at the big picture. Doesn't mean we can't have a big, strong bull day though. So that's why I don't like to trade much with the daily chart. I just kind of like to look at it to see maybe where prices are heading and what's going on and so forth. So, but you can clearly see we're in this blue two-tiered channel working lower, but it's also rather clear that we're in this small-time congestion range area right here as well. And if we were to back out here, just look at the big picture. I mean, when you get on out there, this correction is probably the biggest correction we've had in a while. However, it doesn't mean this trend is over. So we could easily turn back up here. You can see we've had a few other times where we rolled over here, and it looked like, and right here, but it turns back up, and we end up going higher again. So we're definitely down here, been down here in the oversold. So some buying is not out of the not to be unexpected here. So because we have been a little bit oversold, although I think we're still working towards that target. One of the problems was we couldn't, even though we traded through it a couple of times, we never have been able to close out on the other side of this trend channel. So it leads me to believe that that channel is very valid. And you can see we couldn't close above it a few times either. So uh, it's definitely a bearish slant right now, but let's switch over to the 2000 tick chart. Okay, here's a look at our intraday 2000 tick chart, and you can see that clearly we were in a range for most of the day. We broke out of that late this afternoon, just after 1 o'clock, and notice how we came back and we tested that former resistance and it acted as support multiple times before going higher. That's what you want to see before you try to get long on a breakout. And you can see we actually broke out here and it failed. And they continued to try to take it lower, and notice we made that low once, twice, and the third time, and then we took off after that double test. Kind of the same thing down here. We tested these lows a few times before we took off. So uh, in the end, we had a very strong late afternoon rally. Once we went higher from these higher lows here, I probably would have measured this like so to here, but you'd also want to measure it from the last place we took off, which is right here, and that gets you up into that range that we hit before 2:30. And again, I've changed our cutoff time to 2:30. I just think I think you're better off to be out a little bit before 3 o'clock. So anyway, Let's back out here and talk about the trades. Or actually, I should say zoom in. Um, 7 o'clock came right up through here as we're making this high right here. And notice you got a little channel coming out. You get a break, a new high. Now, we already had this channel coming down. We had this close outside here uh, real early in the overnight. But that's so far back that I would still say, hey, we may try to make a new low here. This might even be more like this. More like so. But yeah, you'd probably still be expecting a new low here. And so that's our first break. Got a little channel working up. You get a close outside, a new high. Uh, that is just that is actually a second entry short. But let me move this so you can actually see it. You can see you got a new low. It's lower than that one, so you get a first entry, second entry. And look how bearish that bar is, that far away from the EMA. You're expecting prices to make a new low anyway. So I like going short there. Your little channel's played out. Everything is still saying down at this point. So I would take that short. Such a good signal bar. But of course, it bounces right off the EMA, and really, you could look at this as a failure. So I like going long there as well. A lot of times it's hard to switch gears when you're already thinking short here, and if you're in a short trade, it's a lot harder to switch gears there. So you might have seen one or the other here. If you didn't get short here because you're thinking, hey, we might get another leg up, then of course you'd probably be thinking long, and you probably would think another leg up there because that looks like one leg. Then you get a pullback and then a second leg. If you measure it, we probably got something close to a measured leg. Just measure it and see. Pretty much perfect 2 legs up. It didn't matter. We still continue to go higher. Once this thing is confirmed and just keeps going higher, then stay with it. But until then, you're still really looking. Until we bounced here again, I was still looking for shorts here for the most part. So, but there is a failed second entry short. You might go long right there. Just because you figure that the shorts are going to run their stops when they break it higher, and of course they do. You get another second entry here that probably would have been another nice short trade, but your signal bar is not good enough. And then notice you come back, you get a first entry, and then you bounce right off that key entry point with this actually breaks lower first and turns up. That's a nice second entry long when it breaks higher there. It is an engulfing bar, but you could wait and go long one tick above that. It's bullish enough. We come back and we finally get a close outside this and a second entry long. Notice you're coming back first entry and then second entry. That's a little bit congested. It is at the key entry point, and that's not a perfect signal bar, but it's a second entry, and you do have a channel with a close outside and new low, so you got everything to go higher again. And that's been a pretty good trend right there. It lasted from around 4 a.m. and it's 8:30, so that's a 4.5 hour trend by this point. So at this point, you're just thinking long. Obviously the short trend is over, and maybe this is going to be a range day. So again, I think that one's a little aggressive, but you may take that trade. So another second entry here off the midline, but not a good enough signal bar. And then it looks like we get an overshoot right here. And we actually come back first entry, second entry. I don't think I'd take a short here now. You may take that one because it's so far away from the EMA. On a lower high. I mean, that's one you might consider, but especially if this is an overshoot, even if this channel, we've already had a break and a new high too, so you might get some kind of reversal. That's not really a reversal pattern, but on a second entry short that far away from the EMA with plenty of room to come back, you may take that trade. And then we actually come back down. We're not quite back to the trend line again, and then you get a first entry and another second entry, and now you got a triple test up there and another nice signal bar. I like taking that one too, and you actually get a lower high here, but you can't enter there. Then suddenly you can see the support here as well. So even if you had a good signal bar, I don't think it's probably wise to go short there. You got to get in up here if you're getting in. And you could even argue for this one to maybe be uh, red here on this triple test, that far away from the EMA. But I still think you're a little aggressive looking for longs up here. You got to be really good to try to pick these tops and stuff. And so I'm always going to look at that as being more aggressive. But we've had a break and a new high. We also have what we look like an overshoot. And we've tried to go higher there multiple times. So if you got enough room back to the EMA, even though we're above it, it's probably worth just trying to get a scalp out of it. And suddenly the bottom drops out, and unfortunately you don't get a trade on this one. You do get a second entry short right here, but again, no signal bar. And then now you've had a break of the yellow, and you got a new low in place. It's getting too risky going short down here now. I don't think you want to go long yet, but it's too risky going short. We bounce at the lows down here. They're a little bit higher than the overnight lows. So it's really hard to know if that's going to be a low yet or not. And then, of course, you just get a first entry there, so I don't think you really want to risk that. And now you got two legs up, and then suddenly it sells off hard. You get a first entry long. You push on through the EMA, come back. You get a second entry long that fails and turns back down. I like going short when it breaks through the other side. You may wait till that bar closes, but that's such a big bar at that point, 18 ticks. I really think you want to let it break lower and drop a limit order in here and try to get a little better entry. And I know you could have, because I watched it on that trade, and I believe that's the one. I believe I actually took that trade too. I'm not sure, but then we bounce here. And again, you don't get a very good entry on the bounce, unfortunately. And it just takes off. We come back up here. Notice the resistance, it still comes into play. We actually come back and you get your first close outside this green channel. You actually had a second entry long right there, but we're making lower lows and lower highs, so it could be a channel working down. Turns out it's just a range here, and then we get a little failed break lower. We make a higher low and turn back up. I like going long there. And I'm guessing if you look at this, it's probably a measured. You can see the measured move down. We bounce, and we run to a new high. We actually make a little bit higher high there, and then we get right back in underneath this resistance, and it holds again. And you get a reversal pattern there. So when it breaks lower there, that's a failed second entry long, and that's a nice little move down. We bounce, but that's the first close outside that channel. You get a first entry, second entry, and another leg down. And my red channel has moved here. Seems to do this a whole lot more on NinjaTrader 8 than it did 7. So I don't know if anybody knows of a quick fix for that. I think somebody said it's because you're not really anchored exactly off of a line, but it does seem to move a lot as you move your chart around. Didn't mean to do that either. There, I anchored it. We'll see if that fixes it or not. But you don't really know if you've got a channel here. So there's nothing wrong with taking these shorts here, especially if this looks like a range day still. And that turns out to be a pretty good move right there. Runs down. It looks like we may get our trend channel here, but then it pushes lower. So then it's hard to know, but you can see it coming back into play there as we're working towards a new high. But we can't really stay out above this resistance, then we're going lower again. I don't see any trades in here. I think it's too risky to try to go long here. There is a first entry, second entry right here off the key entry point. So you might have taken that trade, but it just really looks a little bit too congested for me. But we come up here, we fell out the top side again. Try to go higher once, then twice, but that bar's, I just think that's too congested looking again, especially when that one doesn't break lower. Let me zoom in a little bit more here. You can see you got congestion before that breaks lower. It still would have worked on a failure, but I just don't like it. If you wait just a minute, then you get a first entry and a second entry right off the key entry point. Nice signal bar, and it's off to the races. Again, you're just going sideways here. There's a nice signal bar right off the key entry point, but I don't really see how you could justify entering there on a first entry, especially when it looks a little congested and all this. You basically got this support right across here. It continues on down and then bounces. You get a first entry, second entry, and so that's the first close outside this channel, so I like taking that as a second entry short. But it bounces again, then it gives you a higher low. I don't think that you want to go long on that second entry really, because it's right into this. Really what's happened here is you end up with a little range right here. I'm guessing this is probably a measured move down, and there it is. We bounce and go higher. You don't want to go long right into that resistance. You can see it held. It ends up giving way, but you don't know that ahead of time. We run up here and then we turn down. It's such a bearish bar, so far away from the EMA, but you can clearly see that little trend channel working up there, and you could get a break and move to a new high before you come back. So I don't see entering there. Of course, we come back down here. You get a close outside, two legs correction, move to a new low, and you can see this support still holding here. This was the first break, and you get a first entry, second entry, and it's such a bearish bar. Technically, there's a second entry right here. You get that little one tick, but it looks like two legs to me. And so if you draw your little channel right there, you get a close outside new high, but that clearly looks like two legs to me, and that's such a bearish bar. That's why I like that one. I like going short right there. You may not have been able to get in that trade because it just gaps right over and keeps going. I don't know if you could have got in it or not, but if you could, it was worth trading. And of course, we bounce at the support again. This is not rejection off these lows though, so no long there. We do run up, and you get a first entry and another second entry, but this is your signal bar, and this is just an inside bar, so no entry there again. And we finally bounce out of here. This one is tempting to look at as a failure. Notice you got a new low, first entry, second entry. This really looks like a double bottom, so it looks more like your failures here, but you're a long way away from the EMA. It doesn't set up like a failure normally does. You can see though it did rocket on off, so either one of those you really might argue that you want to treat like a failure. I think you're better off to wait, but you can clearly see it off that key entry point. This one confirms it, and you could look at that as a failure. So you may take that trade. I mean, you can't get back to the EMA if the trend line holds, and you can also see that midline and there on the big picture channel range day holding. We bounced right off of it. Runs on up. We're getting too far away up here. No setups really anyway. Get a close outside new high, and then you're coming back, and you run back up, get a new high. We bounce right here, first entry, and then when we turn down and come back up, that's a second entry long. It's a failed second entry short. You just got to make sure you got room to get out before here. As long as you do, you're good to go. I like trading that one on an engulfing bar, but they can be tricky bars, so most of you are better off to wait for the bar to close. And of course, you can see it's acting as resistance there. It eventually pushes on through. You got a little channel working up. You get a close outside, 2 legs to a new high, and then we're working back to the trend line. And we just start going sideways here. I don't see anything I'd want to trade there. It's too tight. We run on up. Then we get a little channel working down. I don't think I have any more trades after that. There's just not any setups in here. That's just the first entry. It's not a failure. Then we're just kind of chopping around here, going sideways. Look how the EMA is flattening out, and then you're back and forth both sides. That's just a range. So it's really hard to trade that. You might have taken this short right here because you've got your highs right there. And so you could look at it as a first track test it once, twice, and that's a fairly bearish bar. The problem is it didn't break lower on the next bar, and it becomes an inside bar, and that kind of scares me away because it could do just what it did here and bounce, but instead of going on lower, it could go higher. So I'm not crazy about that one, especially that late in the day. So anyway, that's how I saw it. If this hadn't been after so late, you might have entered right there. It's a very nice bar with a trap. We broke above all these little matching highs. So I'm sure they trap people in and out there, and they run it down. They trap them out the other side, in and out, and then they goes right where you thought it was going to go to begin with from up here. But that's what I saw today. Again, it's mostly just a range day. We ended up closing higher, so it could end up as a reversal day depending on how prices react from this point forward starting tomorrow. But it really looks like mostly a range day today. We spent most of the day within the highs and lows of the overnight. We didn't get outside that until late this afternoon. So anyway, I'm going to wrap it up. Not much else we can say about today. You can see the day very clearly. We spent a lot of the day right in this, on both sides of this midline, right around 4,300. So I still think we could go lower still yet. I don't think we've met our target to the downside yet. So we'll just have to see. We could rally all the way back to the trend line, although we are in that trading range on the daily chart, and we got to get out of that first. And so we'll see. But I'm going to wrap it up. We'll be back again to do it tomorrow and wrap up our week. I'm done for today. This is Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and we'll see you next time.